We're talking today about an incredibly signal event that occurred in America 2 days ago. An ex-president was convicted of 34 counts of crime, a fraudulent crime and a felony. Now, what is the detail of this crime? Could I ask our real lawyer, Nicholas Mostyn, former distinguished High Court judge, to tell us what is it that is the crime that President Trump has been convicted of?
I established what the crime was by reading the instructions to the jury of the trial judge, who's called Judge Juan Merchan, um, which were an absolute model of clarity, running to 54 pages. I always thought that the instructions to the jury in America were extremely laconic. These are 54 pages, and they could not have been more clear. In fact, they stand good comparison with our standard jury directions in this country, I would say. And they explain exactly why there are 34 charges under New York's penal law number 175.10. Now, what this says is that a person is guilty of falsifying business records in the first degree when, with intent to defraud that includes an intent to commit another crime or an intent to aid or conceal the commission of another crime, that person makes a false entry or causes a false entry to be made in the business records of an enterprise. So what this means is that if you have made or caused to be made a false entry in the business records of an enterprise alone, that is in New York a misdemeanor, which is a minor crime. The distinction between misdemeanors and felonies in England and Wales was abolished in 1967, but it persists in New York. And a misdemeanor attracts a maximum sentence of 1 year in prison and a fine of no more than $1,000, and is generally regarded, and is regarded, not generally, is regarded as a crime of much less seriousness. So falsifying business records alone is a misdemeanor. However, if you falsify business records for a nefarious purpose, and one would have thought that usually somebody would be falsifying business records for a nefarious purpose, and that particular nefarious purpose is the intention to commit another crime in the future or to cover up a crime that has been committed, then it becomes a felony. So, for example, if you falsify business records in order to evade tax in the future, with the intention of evading tax, then that would be a felony. If you falsified business records in order to cover up a prior evasion of tax, that would be a felony. Now, so this is the crime that Donald Trump was charged 34 times with. Why was he charged 34 times? He was charged 34 times because his lawyer and fixer, Mr. Cohen, gave 11 fake invoices, and each of these fake invoices for legal services generated a record in the business business records of the enterprise, a check stub, and a check, and writing of a check and a check stub. So it came to 34. There was one extra record recorded. So it came to 34 pieces of writing that were proof of this crime. So in the crime in question, the underlying crime that was alleged that Trump was either had committed or was intending to commit was the crime of violation of New York's election law. And New York's election law prohibits a conspiracy, that's an unlawful agreement, to promote or prevent, not in this case, to promote the election of any person to a public office by unlawful means. And it was said in this case that the payment of the monies via Cohen to Stormy Daniels was pursuant to a conspiracy to promote Trump's election to the office of president of the presidency of the United States, and was done by unlawful means. And the unlawful means in question there were three possible unlawful means, and the jury don't have to agree about which one it was. They just have to agree that there were unlawful means, were either violation of federal electoral laws, which limit the amount of money that can be spent on campaigning on your campaign, or falsification of other business records. In this case, Cohen had set up a completely fake shell company, or violation of tax laws. And the unlawful means, the violation of tax laws in this case, would have been filing false tax returns, presenting Cohen's invoices as a legitimate expense. So those were the charges that Trump faced, and those are the charges on which Trump was found guilty. He was found guilty of falsifying the business records of the Trump organization for the purpose of the crime of violation of New York's election laws, as I've described. I hope that's been
That's very clear. So
sufficiently.
what you're saying is he diddled the accounts by saying it was legal services when it was a payoff to Stormy Daniels.
Yes.
He did it in order to promote his own election in conspiracy with Cohen. And he
Yes.
was using unlawful means because Cohen was either giving him electoral donations that were above the limit, or he
Yes.
was using other fraudulent documentation, like the documentation for setting up the shell company.
Yes.
And the effect of it, because or is enough, was to avoid tax. So any
Yes.
one of those three things made it a crime.
It did. It did.
And the essence of it is dishonestly trying to get yourself elected by misleading people as to what expenses you've incurred.
Exactly.